My name is Jacobs. I'm 35 years old, and today, I want to tell you about my family. It's not just a story. It's my life, filled with love, sacrifice, and moments that shaped me into the man I am today. I was born into a humble but loving home. My father, Daniel, was a mechanic, a man of few words but strong hands. My mother, Grace, was a seamstress who believed in kindness above all things. Together, they raised me and my two younger brothers, Samuel and David, in a small town where everyone knew everyone. We didn't have much, but we had each other, and for a long time that was enough. Life was simple when I was a child. My father worked long hours at the shop, while my mother sewed dresses late into the night. My brothers and I spent our days playing football in the dusty streets, coming home to the smell of my mother's cooking. I remember how my father used to carry me on his shoulders, telling me, "Jacobs, a man's strength is not in his hands, but in his heart." But when I turned 15, our lives changed forever. It was a Tuesday afternoon when it happened. My father was working under a car when the jack gave way. The vehicle came crashing down, crushing his legs. By the time they pulled him out, the damage was done. The doctors said he'd never walk properly again. The man I had always seen as strong, unbreakable, was now confined to a wheelchair. With my father unable to work, my mother took on extra jobs, cleaning houses, selling handmade clothes in the market. I watched her come home every night, exhausted but still smiling, still asking about our day as if everything was normal. But I knew things weren't normal. The bills started piling up. Some nights, there wasn't enough food for everyone, and I would pretend I wasn't hungry so my brothers could eat. It was the first time I understood what struggle really meant. Despite everything, I worked hard in school. My mother always told me that education was my way out, our way out, and I believed her. At 19, I got a scholarship to study engineering at a university in the city. Felt like a miracle. For the first time in years, my father smiled again. My mother cried tears of joy. My brothers looked up to me like I was a hero. But life wasn't done testing us. Just as I was preparing to leave for school, my mother fell ill. At first, it was just a cough. Nothing serious. Then it got worse. She lost weight, her skin turned pale, and she could barely get out of bed. The doctors said it was cancer. They said treatment was possible, but it was expensive, far beyond anything we could afford. I had two choices: leave for school and chase my dreams, or stay and take care of my family. I chose my family. I can still remember the day I made that decision. My mother held my hands, her eyes filled with sadness. "Jacobs, you have to go," she whispered. "This is your future." But I shook my head. "You are my future," I told her. "Samuel and David are my future. I can't leave you." I dropped out of school before I even started. I took up a job at my father's old workshop, fixing cars with hands that were meant to hold books. My days were long, my nights even longer. But I didn't complain. Couldn't. Because while I was fighting to keep us afloat, my mother was fighting for her life. For a year, I did everything I could. I worked extra shifts. I borrowed money. I even sold some of my father's old tools. But it wasn't enough. One night, I came home late from work and found my brothers sitting outside, their faces pale with fear. I rushed inside and saw my mother lying on the bed, her breathing shallow. I knelt beside her, holding her hand. She looked at me and smiled. So weak, but still my mother, still full of love. "Jacobs," she whispered, "promise me you'll take care of them." I wanted to tell her she would be okay. I wanted to tell her I had found a way to get the money, but deep down I knew. That night she left us. I didn't cry, not then, couldn't. My brothers needed me. My father, broken, silent, needed me. So I did what I had to do. I became both brother and father. I worked harder, saved every penny, and made sure Samuel and David stayed in school. Time passed and things didn't get easier, but we survived. Samuel got into law school. David had a passion for business, so I helped him start a small shop. My father, though still in his wheelchair, found ways to contribute, teaching me things about cars that I never knew. I never went back to school. I never became an engineer. My dreams faded into the background, replaced by a simple goal: making sure my brothers had a better life. And they did. Last year, Samuel graduated and became a lawyer. He stood on that stage wearing his black robe, and when he looked at me in the audience, he cried. Not because he was sad, but because he knew what I had given up for him to be there. David's business grew. He bought my father a new wheelchair, something more comfortable, something that gave him back a little of his freedom. And me? I'm still here working at the workshop. I still come home late, my hands covered in grease, my body aching. But when I sit down at the table with my father and my brothers, when I see the life they have built, I don't feel regret. I feel pride. Because family isn't just about love, it's about sacrifice. And if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't change a thing. As the years passed, I watched my brothers grow into the men I always hoped they would be. Samuel, now a respected lawyer, fights for people who can't fight for themselves. Sometimes he tells me about his cases, about the injustices he sees in the world. And every time he wins, every time he helps someone get justice, he looks at me and says, "I couldn't have done this without you, Jacobs." David, on the other hand, became a businessman. His small shop turned into something bigger, a thriving company that now employs people from our town. He always makes sure I have everything I need, always trying to repay me in ways I never asked for. But the truth is, I don't need repayment. Seeing them succeed is enough for me. My father, though still in his wheelchair, seems more at peace these days. He spends his mornings sitting outside the house, watching the world go by, and in the evenings, he listens to the stories we bring home. Sometimes, I catch him smiling when he thinks no one is looking, as if he's remembering the struggles we overcame together. As for me, I've accepted my life for what it is. I never went back to school, never became the engineer I once dreamed of being. The workshop has become my second home, the place where I pour my energy, my skills, my years of experience. Customers know me by name, trust me with their cars, and sometimes they sit and talk while I work, telling me their problems as if I have all the answers. And maybe, in a way, I do. Because life has taught me things no school ever could. It taught me that love isn't just about words. It's about showing up, staying when it's easier to leave, sacrificing when no one else will. It taught me that strength isn't just about what you can carry, but about what you can endure. It taught me that sometimes, the dreams we have for ourselves are not as important as the dreams we can help others achieve. But I won't lie. There are nights when I sit alone in my small room, staring at the ceiling, wondering what my life would have been if things had been different. Would I have been working in a big company? Would I have traveled the world? Would I have had a family of my own? I don't know, and I probably never will. What I do know is that if I had to go back in time and make that choice again, I would still choose my family. Every single time. Because at the end of the day, when I sit at the dinner table, surrounded by the people I love, I don't feel regret. I feel something deeper, something richer. I feel fulfilled. Because family is not just about where you come from, it's about who you choose to stand by no matter what. And I will always stand by mine.